Hey, all. Happy Wednesday and welcome back from, if you did a vacation or a short holiday, we did, and went out to Texas. It was nice and cool out there. Cool weather. Actually, it was kind of cool. It wasn't as hot as it's been. We had an awesome family reunion experience out there and came back, and all is well. And we're looking forward to sharing with you again from Atmananda, Krishna Menon, and our co-host this week is the awesome Amy Haible. Hey, Amy.
Hello, Bill.
And Amy,
Namaste.
she lives about an hour and a few minutes north of me. Seriously, we could drive and meet for coffee if we wanted to. You live on a kind of an island thing, don't you?
Well, I live on a
Peninsula.
yeah, it's a finger that sticks out into the ocean.
Right, right.
It's really nice. It's about I would say half a mile wide at its widest point.
Right.
It's called
right.
Swell.
Yeah. I was kind of curious a few weeks ago, and I'm going, where is she in Maine? And I looked it up. I found it on the map, and I'm going, oh my God, she's surrounded with water.
I am.
They're surrounded. Actually, you might. Is it hard to get to you? Is it?
No. It's super easy.
It looks wildernessy on the map.
I wish 20 years ago when I first lived here it was, but with COVID, this became a magnet. Everybody wanted to move here and it's really beautiful. We have an increasing problem with affordable housing, but because everybody wants to live on the coast and there's only so much coastline. So we bought here. Oh my God, my husband bought this piece of property probably, I want to say 40, 45 years ago. So it was still affordable then.
Oh yeah, $10.
Yeah.
In comparison, it's like, he bought it at the right time. Good for you guys.
It's true.
Okay, so we're looking at Discourses 270. Is that right?
280.
No, 280.
Yes. Is it 280 or 281? I guess
it's 280. What? No, is it? We did what is rhythm, so it must be 281. What is?
Yeah, 281.
Yeah. What is Purusha?
Purusha. I know that Jenny will help with this. These are some interesting discourses here. But Jenny, I'm going to do my best before you speak up. So you just sit back and relax, and I'll get it wrong, and then you can correct me.
Yeah.
So Purusha. Purusha is the quality of being a Purusha, the inmost core of oneself. So he says that all conscious and deliberate activities of the mind and body are subject to Purusha. Purusha has this tinge of independence, and it's opposed to destiny. So my first clue here is Purusha, it has a tinge of independence. It has a tinge of awakening in it. It is awakening. It is conscious. It's awareness. So, and then he says a person who doesn't have the capacity of thinking deeply about the future just submits meekly, like without any thought, to destiny. And destiny governs only the bodily and mental activities of the human being. All the rest is governed by Purusha alone. Purusha is the being beyond the mind, inclined to activity. So it is motion, it is change. You know how we say that the world or consciousness, awareness is awareness, or the activity of the mind is it's consciousness in motion. So I'm thinking that Purusha is like that flavor, that perfume of motion that consciousness engages in or moves in or does its thing in. It's like the yang element in that it motivates. It's like a force that causes the seed to sprout. It's a motivating force that impels a person to move beyond the script that is in front of them. And it happens through awareness, through consciousness of yourself as being. And that's my take on Purusha. And now Jen is probably going to really, or someone else here will probably add quite a bit more, but I thought I'd give it a go anyway.
I thought that was a good go for sure.
Well, that's what Atmananda is saying, but I think what he's saying is rather misleading, in fact, because Purusha is normally contrasted with Prakriti. And it's one of these cases where in the Sanskrit language, they divide things up because the mind likes to divide. And so the idea is, I mean, Advaitins go for all these huge number of little subdivisions of everything. And every Sanskrit word has many subtle meanings. So what they're dividing up here is reality. And they're dividing it into two elements. They're dividing it into Purusha and Prakriti, or it's I, me, myself, equally, divided into Purusha and Prakriti. And Purusha is actually the immobile part, and Prakriti is the mobile part. So another way of looking at it would be Shiva and Shakti. And I think he's trying to bring someone who is very steeped in a particular take on Purusha, because different philosophies within the Hindu traditions treat Purusha in different ways. I'm not sure what was behind the original question, right. But what he's trying to lead the questioner to is the idea that there is only one being, that there is only one, that what we really are is unmoving, unchanging. So that's really how it is. But Purusha and Prakriti were misunderstood really quite badly by the School of Philosophy around the world, the School of Economic Science in the UK, School of Philosophy in other places. And they took the words from the Shankaracharya and they interpreted, because Purusha is often thought of as the male element in the same way that Shiva is the male element, Prakriti the female, and because it's manifestation, Prakriti is nature, manifestation. So
that's why I related it to yin and yang.
Yes, yeah, but it's the Purusha which is the unmoving. So what this school did was it said that only men were Purusha and women were Prakriti, and therefore only men could be realized, women could not be realized, and
no ego in that.
And men were essentially good and women were essentially evil. So it is so commonly misunderstood, Purusha and Prakriti, but it's very complicated because it's interpreted in many different ways in different Indian philosophies. So I mean, there's loads of different Indian philosophies.
Jenny, how would you relate that to the concept of awareness, consciousness, beingness, in motion, just moving? How would you relate it to that concept?
Well, that's Prakriti.
Okay.
So that's Prakriti. I wouldn't bother about this because it's one of those cases where he's answering someone who comes with a particular belief system in mind. And unless you happen to have that belief system, it's not going to make a lot of sense to you. And it is quite hard to decode. If I'd seen the original question, I could probably explain why he answered the way he did, but I haven't. So I don't.
Okay, well, I'm glad to know that I was not barking up the totally wrong tree, but just maybe there wasn't even any tree there.
I think there was no, I would forget about the tree, yes.
All righty. Thank you, Jenny.
Thank you. Thank you, Jenny. And William has his hand up. William. Hey, William, unmute your mic, please. Hold still. Are you with us, William?
Yes, thank you. Thank you, Jenny.
Yeah, that was awesome. Thank you for that input. William, did you have something?
Yeah. Within the eternal silence of eternity of time, the destructive silence, creation vibrates within itself. That's what we call Prakriti. But in the Kurukula, in the union of Purusha and Prakriti, there is no separation. Those are only appearances. This is what the Tantra teaches in its essence.
Okay. Well, I like the take that Jenny just offered when she said you don't need it. That sounds really good.
No, because you don't need it, because it's one. That's just the way in Sankhya, an ancient school of Indian philosophy, which works with divisions, and the tattvas in Kashmiri Shaivism, breaking everything down into smaller and smaller pieces, chopping in recognition of the principle of Purusha. There's absolutely no division. Everything is self.
Right. Yeah.
There's no object or subject.
Right. Yeah. And there was a lot of confusion, and Atmananda was attempting to unconfuse some of the entanglement, I think.
Exactly.
Yeah.
That's what he's telling his student.
Yeah. There was a question from Andrew that said, is Purusha the same as presence?
I'm not getting that it is. I'm not getting that it is. I think it's beyond the mind inclined to activity. But I think as Jenny said, this is there's no tree here. So maybe we could find a different tree or something. I did want to make one comment though, and that is that in the idea that a woman could never be realized, that is a fundamental error in logic and understanding reality, because the lesser cannot give birth to the greater, which is something that is oftentimes conveniently overlooked. Moving on from that, I just wanted to make that.
No, before that's a good point, Amy, and I just laugh that I'm in a man's bodysuit because I have no tolerance for the male dominance that's in so much scriptural writing. I don't think I'm supposed to be in this male body. It just doesn't connect to those dots. There is one thing that was mentioned in that discourse that Purusha or women, a man who has not the capacity of thinking deeply about his future meekly submits to destiny. And I connect the word destiny in this to patterns of ignorance. In that form, that destiny isn't a given. It's in that way it's being presented. It would be patterns of ignorance, not really something that's inevitable.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Mhm.
That's just what I got out of it.
Yeah. Yeah. And that, and I could be completely wrong about this, but that also Purusha is the motivating, is part of the motivation to wake up. It's the element beyond the mind that is inclined to move, to ask, to seek. So it's not just physical activity, but it's also to seek. But again, no tree there.
No tree there, right? Good.
So
Let's move to 282. What makes one a true aspirant?
yes.
Yeah.
And I drew a line here in the book from Purusha to prompts. What makes a true aspirant? It's one's desire to get to the truth that prompts one to search for it. So that's where I kind of thought, well, maybe that's where Purusha kicks in here. And the desire is nothing but a direct function of the heart. And this I love. This is a lesson. It is the heart that seeks. All your conscious efforts, even though actuated by reason, follow only the course chalked out by this heart. It's the heart's desire, and therefore every seeker of truth expresses his heart sufficiently well. And at last, when the seeker, following the path of reason, reaches the citadel, the pinnacle of truth, she finds the heart there also in full and as one with reason and with himself. So truth is visualized by the harmonious blending of the head and the heart in peace. So Andrew asks, what is the heart? The heart, that is a question. The heart is loving awareness. It is just loving awareness, in love with itself, just so in love with itself, which means that we have to be in love with everyone we meet, because everyone we meet is ourself. It's that love.
Yeah. I was going to say love, and I really love the way you put it. Because it's that visceral. I mean, as far as the mind or the experience can relate to it, it has to be that primordial experience that is beyond anything you can put a word to. That when you love someone beyond the physical experience, like you do a small child or an animal, or the love that you have for just being, it just has to be that essence.
Yeah, love is a huge motivating force. Huge the unmoved mover. Yes, complete freedom.
Yeah. Open. I mean, you can't really put the right word on it, because but it's that.
Yeah, and this take us back to A Course in Miracles, which tells us that we cannot really know love in these bodies, in this body mind. That love is, love, the experience of love is beyond the capacity of the Course to teach. It's so big. And I think about this also when I read about near-death experiences, and almost every single near-death experience that I've read, and I've read hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of them, the one overriding factor is the indescribable love that is experienced once the body mind is transcended. And so it's an awareness of just overwhelming acceptance and fullness. And so
And we get a taste of it.
we
It's
do.
just a taste of it to know the self.
Yes. Yeah.
Yeah.
Kendall says heart is the touchstone, the anchoring. Yes. Yes. The unmoved mover, complete freedom. Yeah, that's right. That's right.
Jenny's getting ready to drop something in. I can
she
tell.
is. Come on, bring it on. Bring it on. The absence of the sense of separation with anything. It's an attribute of reality, the self. Yes. 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 It's the removing the blocks to love's awareness. Yes.
It's the bomb.
Yep. Yep. Yes, the absence of
good.
the sense of
Yeah,
separation.
it is. It's the absence. Yeah, it's the absence of. It's the awareness of love's presence is in as far as the experience is. So yeah, it's in the. It takes the place of, when you're talking about mind, body, and spirit, it's really mind, body, and heart. Heart is the felt experience of being, so to speak.
Bernard Kastrup says, I love him. I've been listening to his podcasts, and he says the intellect is the bouncer of the heart. That's
a good one.
I really like that one. The intellect is the bouncer of the heart. And that is so true, because one can memorize all kinds of scripture and all kinds of stuff and still not have an awakened heart or an open heart. So
I'm going to have to ask him about that. The intellect, I'm going to ask him to go deeper on that.
Good.
Yeah. We're going to interview him in about 3 weeks.
Oh man, he is one of the most brilliant minds that I can't even, superlatives don't justify. He's just a real person though.
Yeah.
He's just a real person.
He is.
He's a big teddy bear, a big, really, really smart teddy bear.
Smart teddy bear.
Yeah.
Very smart. Where are you from, Amy?
Maine.
It sounds like you're from Boston.
Yeah.
Okay. What is real bondage? What is real bondage?
This is a good one, because he takes us beyond the initial answer to the question. And so real bondage, it seems like he's speaking of a person here who starts out as the witness, but then regresses or steps back into ignorance without even realizing it. And the bondage is the inability to see the contradiction between sometimes being a witness and sometimes being a doer. And most of us have been this or are this. We sort of go in and out of it, being a witness of thoughts and feelings, but then also saying, I have a thought or I have a feeling, right? Meaning the small self, and not even seeing that they've just left their true self at the doorstep. So when the mind is thinking or feeling, you always stand as the witness. But when you talk about these thoughts, like I have thoughts or I have feelings, you apparently change your stand and pose as the doer. I have them, right? Who is the I that has them? Who is the I that does these feelings? And you don't make any distinction between these two, and you attribute them both to the I principle. He says this ignorance is the real bondage. It's what Jenny tells us all the time. There is no ego. There is no person. I don't have any feelings. I don't have any feelings. I'm aware of feelings. I am aware of the emotion that is arising in my awareness. But Amy, there's no tree there.
There's
Amy
no tree.
There's no Amy there. No.
And the you he's speaking to every time he says you in that discourse is not Amy. It's not Bill.
No.
It's the you that doesn't have a name. Yeah.
Or the you that thinks she knows who she is, or that who thinks he knows who he is. He thinks he knows, but he doesn't. So he's talking to the student here. But yes, you're right, Bill. He's talking to the one beyond the student.
Right. Well, when he says you always stand as the witness, he's not
That is-
talking to the person.
Right. You're right. You're 100% right.
Yeah. That's where a lot of the teachings go off the rails when the pointer of the author is speaking to the true you, and you think it's you, the personal self, you.
It's a good point.
Yeah.
It's a really good point.
Most course students do that all the way through reading the course.
Mm.
It says you, oh, you said this, you do not make any distinction between these two functions, and you attribute both these activities to the I principle. This is real bondage. And when you ask someone, are you aware of this experience? And they go, yeah, I'm aware of this experience. Well, what is it that's aware of it? Well, I am. Bill is. No. That's where it poses as the I principle.
Yes. And Helen Hamilton, Susan is hosting Helen Hamilton, and she's just teaching a great Evolve class. And one person was really trying to distinguish what you just said, Bill, and Helen really tried to lead that person into the understanding that you just expressed. And it was beautiful to watch her do that so gently and so kindly.
Helen is she's a teacher's teacher. We could call her, if she was here, we could call her Professor Hamilton. we could give her that.
Yeah.
When Jenny, I'm just going to give a little side accolade here. Jenny Beal, when she did the master class last month, 27 new people signed up to be with her for last month. Thank you, Jenny, for that awesome class for people. It was really, we have a lot of emails that came in from that. Thank you.
Well, thank you, Bill, for making this platform, because there are some phenomenal teachers out there, and it's such a gift to have access to those teachings. Helen teaches in her own way. It's beautiful. She is the epitome of gentleness, and
Yeah, Helen, we interviewed Helen for the next episode in Awakening Mind film series. We interviewed her a couple of weeks ago, 2 or 3 weeks ago in Philadelphia. She was amazing. She gave us a 2-hour interview.
I cannot wait to see that movie.
Yeah, it was great. Okay, we should move to, let's see, why does consciousness think it is something other than itself? This is so good.
I know. And he says this is a question very often asked. But then when we examine the question, we find it's asked from the position that such an identification actually exists, that it's real. And this question has also conceded the existence of a body, senses, and mind, besides that of consciousness transcending all of these.
Yeah.
So
this is a statement masquerading as a question, actually, is what he's implying.
that was, well, you just hit, the ball went through the basket on that one. That was very good, Bill. Succinct, wham, good. I like that. Consciousness and everything other than consciousness exist in, this one I'm going to call you on. 2 different planes. We had this discussion a while ago, and Bill says there aren't 2 different planes.
Okay,
but here's Atmananda, and I know there aren't 2 different planes, but he's talking 2 different planes here.
Mm-hmm.
He says, when we look from the plane of consciousness, we find there's nothing other than consciousness. And and thus this question doesn't arise. It's like forgiveness doesn't exist in the kingdom of God.
Right.
It's only a question here in this apparent world. But when we look at it from the mind's plane and we concede the existence of both world and consciousness, it's been proved that consciousness can be there only as a witness. And the witnesses perception, witnesses only perception and not objects. And it's also been proved that perception is nothing other than consciousness itself. And for this reason also, the world is an illusion and the question cannot arise.
There's only one plane.
There's only one plane.
Sorry. However, there is the appearance of this activity that we, in a relative sense, we were seemingly having this experience. Well, this experience is happening, and yet it's not separate from the totality of the oneness of one essential self.
That's right. That's also why we're not all sitting here naked in front of the camera, because even though we know we're not a body, we've gotten up and dressed the body this morning. Right? It's from the relative plane, you follow the rules of the relative plane, all the while knowing that the plane that there is no plane. There's only consciousness. There's only awareness.
There seems to be, like when Jesus gave the statement, "In my Father's house are many mansions. If it were not so, I would have told you." He's speaking on the relative sense of, I think, consciousness discovering itself prior to knowing itself as the absolute.
Yes.
Because it's like Donald Hoffman says, this is an interface that sees a 3 or 4 dimensional reality. Why not 5 or 10 dimensional realities? Those would be planes still in time and space, yet not the absolute.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
That's my take on that.
Yep.
So moving to 285. What is the nature of thoughts and feelings?
So this is a good one, and it reminds me again of Donald Hoffman of quantum physics, going from, essentially from matter is all to observing the smallest particle and then discovering that it's really just all consciousness. So what he's saying here is that all thoughts and feelings arise in infinite, boundaryless consciousness. Thoughts rise in consciousness, rest in consciousness, and set in consciousness. Therefore, it's nothing other than consciousness. And it consists of the content and the boundary. This is an interesting, he hasn't explained it like this before, like a thought is content with a boundary. And he says, now examining thought with the mind itself, the mind perceives only the boundary of the thought or the perception and calls it thought. And examining it closer, the mind crosses that boundary and enters the content of thought. But to its amazement, the mind finds itself lost in thought, and merged in the content of thought, lost in thought, merged in that thought, which is nothing but pure consciousness. I mean, this is so refined. Refined.
It really is. I mean, I love the way you're reading it, Amy, because it's trackable.
Yeah, it is. Yeah. And so then he just says, so and thus the thought, endeavoring to examine the content of thought, is no thought at all in the strictest sense of the term. The thought, examining the thought, doesn't even exist in the strictest sense of the term. It's all just rising in consciousness, resting in consciousness, and setting in consciousness.
So stop it. As Bob Newhart would say, just stop chasing it.
Well, this is what I loved about Helen Hamilton. She says so beautifully, she realizes that the thoughts in her mind don't know her. They have no idea who she is.
Oh,
That
that's an interesting way to put it.
It is. The mind is just a thought machine. That's all it is. But it doesn't know you. It has no idea who you are. What a beautiful, subtle truth.
Mm. Yeah.
Yeah. So the thought endeavoring to examine the content of its thought isn't a thought at all in the strict sense of the term, because its object is consciousness itself, which can never be objectified. And in the attempt, the mind dies. It goes into the thought. It can't go anywhere. It just diminishes in and is transformed into consciousness itself. And then he says the same is true with feelings. You go and you examine your feeling, and the mind gets merged in peace itself, because that's where all feelings come from. It's from the peace of awareness.
Mm-hmm.
That's the heart. That's the heart of awareness, is that peace.
So in the word, using the word or the idea of examining, he's not really saying analyze it. He's saying just be present and aware of the feelings, and the mind is then merged in peace itself. So it's not an analyzing. Examining doesn't mean analyzing here.
Well, I think you're right about that. I think it means inquiring.
Contemplating, just being present without attachment. Yeah.
I know. Who is the one who is aware of this thought? On whose behalf does this thought arise?
That's just a witness.
Or maybe it arises on the one who believes herself to be a small, frail person. Does that person exist? No. So I think that's what he means by examining. It's contemplating, it's inquiring.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And it'll always lead you back to.
Yeah. The contemplation is the dissolution of the seeming separate analyzer.
Yes.
Yeah. 286. The question, how to rise from the gross to the absolute through any sense organ? Yeah.
I know that there will be good help on this one. I did do my best. And he's using sound as his for his example. And he says that words are ideas. All words are ideas conveyed through sound, regardless of the language. It doesn't matter what the language is. It's always an idea expressed as sound. It's kind of like, it's like the first line in, what is it, Genesis, and the word, God was the word, whatever. When I sort of related it to that a little. So sound is representative of an idea, and all ideas arise outside language. So the idea is actually beyond the spoken word.
Yeah, so when I think of that verse in Genesis, in the beginning was the Word, and the Word was with God, and the Word was God. I think of that as word being the vibrational frequency of what God is. So the word, the word in my mind, in that context, means the vibrational frequency of consciousness.
Yeah. In my mind, word is sort of the most fundamental thing you can say in a word, is word. And yet what it's representing is the unlimited and infiniteness that is beyond any spoken word. It's just the simple, it could be blue. It doesn't really matter what it was. It's just, or what it is, it's just word. But what that conveys is an idea of infinity, boundlessness, unmeasurable being. And so that's what Atmananda is saying here, is that all words are ideas, and ultimately all ideas are reducible to the one idea, the languageless idea. And there's only one languageless idea which stands as the ultimate reality, and that's consciousness.
So are you saying, Amy, that it doesn't matter what word you use, it has the same meaning?
I think what he's doing is he is taking what words represent, which is ideas, and then taking the idea of the idea itself, which is that all language, all attempts to communicate, all perceptions are ultimately languageless, and they all come from the idealless idea and the one language, which is the ultimate reality, consciousness.
Yeah, that makes sense. And in essence, it doesn't matter what word you use, it's consciousness.
Yeah. And the primal sound. Yeah.
Yeah. Perfect. Yeah.
Yeah. The primal sound.
Yeah. We think it's a word. It's just that vibrational frequency.
Yeah. It's just the idealist expression. But then he goes on and he gives us, so he says all ideas are similarly reducible to the languageless idea. As languageless ideas, there is nothing to distinguish between each other except the samskara, that little leftover that you started the inquiry each time from a particular idea. Therefore, languageless ideas cannot be many, but only one.
Don't tell me anything. Everything means the same.
Then he says, transcending the samskara regarding the origin of the inquiry, the languageless idea stands as the ultimate reality. And then he gives us these examples. The following are the definite stages from left to right in the progress from the gross to the absolute. And so I had trouble finding the right definitions here, but Vaikari is the articulated sound. It's the gross external vocal expression of sound. So that's like the gross, the material form of sound.
Yeah.
Then Madhyama is the heart sound. It's the sound unsound. It's the you could call it also the intellectual or mental aspect of sound, but it's the heart sound, which sounds like a contradiction, but I don't think it is. And then the Pashanti, that is beyond discrete classification. That's the sage in deep contemplation. That's the internal kind of representation of the sound, which is not discrete. It's unclassified. And then para is the highest sound. It's the pure, absolute, transcendent. And I'm not. Yeah,
it gives the impression of a gradual understanding.
Yes.
It's almost like the way one comes to awakening. First, it's the gross, you hear about it, maybe there's curiosity. Then there's the subtlety of the transmission that comes through the teaching. And then there's something that is the witness to self-realizing, which is, I'm me.
Mhm. Or a glimpse in meditation, or a dream, or it's an internal vision of oneself as the absolute, or as not being separate from the absolute. And then the highest is just the absolute. And he says that the last two, the witness, the languageless idea, the essence of the mantra, and the form generic, is very close to the absolute, except for the samskaras that the third contains. So they still have these remnants of the illusion attached to them, of the samskara.
Yeah, that's really good. That's it right there. What a master teacher this guy is. Oh my God.
Yeah. Yeah. He really is direct and clear.
Yeah.
You know, and the thing that I think is so important is that the one who has mastered the teaching through their intellect can teach, but until you've had the heart wisdom also open and fully functioning and fully experienced, the teaching lacks that. And you can tell, you can tell. That's why I said there are some people that could memorize A Course in Miracles, but they still didn't get it, you know? And so it's really important that the teacher can only communicate through his or her own being that which she or he knows and has experienced himself. And that's why I think that gets to Jenny's, you know, you need to be present with your guru somehow or another to have that transmission, because it's an experiential transmission. It's wordless. You know, and that gets into the Pashyanti, you know, it's the languageless, it's beyond the subtle or the form. That's just my understanding. I could be wrong there, but that's my take. That's my 2 cents.
Yeah, I'm not positive that you need a teacher, a guru in the flesh. I have a sense that the guru, because it's just its presence, that it reveals itself as itself without a physical teacher to some.
Yes.
That's just my sense. And like Atmananda, he had his guru one night.
No.
One night he had.
Yeah.
I mean, he plugged into his Tesla experience big time.
Well, there are no absolutes except the absolute.
Yeah. What is instinct?
This is an interesting one, because I was looking at instinct from my Western biological interpretation, but he's really talking about it differently. And so he says, long practice of any voluntary action. And that's the difference. To me, instinct is involuntary. It's like, you know, it's like the newborn infant that just knows how to nurse right away, you know, or the, you know, the turtle that knows how to break out of its shell and then knows how to walk toward the ocean. So he's talking about instinct as long practice of a voluntary action that just becomes mechanical. And by mechanical, I think he just means unconscious. It just degenerates into instinct, which is unconscious and involuntary.
So it sounds like he's implying that this instinct is not intuitive. This instinct is reaction.
Yeah.
That's what it seems like.
Yeah, it seems like he's sort of talking about it like it's a well-worn neural pathway that begins as a voluntary action and which over time just wears this neural pathway that becomes this deep groove in the brain, and it becomes mechanical, and then it just degenerates into this just unconscious behavior that just is self-propelling,
Yeah. It
self-motivated.
has to be untangled. It has to be it has to be unentangled.
Yeah. I mean, so in a way, our attachment to the personal I and our attachment to separation as truth, it has become what he would call an instinct in a way, because we don't question anymore. We do it repetitively. We've established these neural pathways as seeing you are you and I am me and we are separate. And that's would probably define instinct for him. I don't know.
Yeah.
Maybe Jenny or someone else can tell me.
It seems like instinct, if in this term, is disentangled as one becomes more clear, has a because it's not a behavior that undoes this entanglement or this degeneration. It's the light that shines on the entanglement that dissolves the trauma or the belief or the conditioning that layers on to that which is the light.
Yeah.
And Kendall, is
Automatic pilot. Yeah.
Mechanical instinct, perhaps we could say automatic pilot, right?
Yeah, you might say that. I could see Jenny is typing away, but this one is really good. I love this. 289. No, what's that? Where are we? How to know.
288.
288. Okay.
How to know correctly.
So he says, Jenny says, not necessarily a bad thing. It's how we drive a car.
Right.
True. That's true. Good point. Good point. Yep. Good point.
How many times have you driven your car and you get there and you go, I don't remember even driving here.
I know. Hopefully
that's instinct.
Yeah. Hopefully that happens less and less.
Yeah.
But how do we know correctly? So here he is saying that the one self has to be the ultimate knower, that we can't know anything if this is not known. If we don't know that the one self is the ultimate knower, we can't know anything. This has to be so. And he says, everything that is known is reducible to this. And even to say there's nothing to know, there has to be a knower to know this. He says, Sat is the last thing, the most irreducible, ultimate. It can't be thought of as anything. It's incapable of even being thought of as non-existent. And yet it's known. And do not objectify even this, the witness that is the awareness of self. The self is the ultimate self that cannot become what's found. The ultimate self can't even become what's found. It's just this.
Yeah, when you ask someone, are you aware, as the beginning of the introduction to the glimpse or to knowing oneself, and they say, yeah, I'm aware, or you can move over to, well, do you exist? Well, yeah, I exist. And that's the thing that can't be objectified.
Yeah. And one of the things that I have just gotten, I'll let you guys know what I think of it when I get it. It was on the interview with Swamiji and Bernard Kastrup. And Swamiji introduced a book that was written by a Tibetan Buddhist monk who talks about the 5 stages of emptiness, or the 5 kinds of emptiness. which I'm going to get and take a look at. But I think, you know, which, I mean, we're just parsing this emptiness into, you know, as far as we can go. It's like searching every corner in the mind in order to find the last little molecule that's in there. But he says that Sat is that which is incapable of being even thought of as non-existent. No, and this is, to me, and of course says God takes that last step. You know, you don't take that last step yourself. Even the one who perceives herself or himself to be the knower doesn't take the last step. Sat is that which is.
Amy, I just want to bring clarity to that statement, because God isn't something else that steps in.
No, it's like the last veil being lifted.
Yeah, it
That's
self-lifts. It self-lifts. It is not a doer. Right.
You're 100% on the money. Thank you. That's right. I'm just quoting from A Course, which, as you have pointed out many times correctly, is not really completely, you know, it's still dual. It is for sure.
Yeah.
So he says, if it were found that all there is does not exist, then one's own self could not exist to find this out. The self cannot become what's found. Just what one is in truth, oneself must be acknowledged from the start. And that's it in a nutshell.
That's it, man. Yeah. Right there.
That's it in a nutshell.
Yeah. Sat Chit Ananda.
Yeah. So just be.
Yeah. And 289.
Yeah.
Oh, go ahead.
I just love this one because he's basically just saying, just love yourself. Love yourself.
Yeah.
When you,
I really like that you come to a stage in awakening where you realize you can't help it. You can't move it along. In fact, your best strategy is to rest.
yes.
is to allow and become a good listener, a good pauser, so to speak.
Yeah, Jean Klein, being listening. That, I mean, being listening now.
Yeah.
You know, when you're not listening, you're not being listening, then you're stepped beyond. You stepped outside yourself. So he says, when you love an object, the object is outside and the love is inside, and the two can never meet as they are. Something outside and something inside. But then he says the contact is established inside. Recognize the contact is established inside, where the gross object is represented by its subtle form or thought. So the real contact between your love of your object, of the love that you feel inside and the object that you perceive to be outside, it's only between your own thought and your own feeling. And hence it comes to mean that you love only yourself always.
Yeah.
There's no inside or outside of me. Exactly. That's what he's just saying. Yeah, there isn't any inside or outside of me. It's all the love. It's all the love.
Yeah, it's really so good, because the deeper we go, the more we know that we are.
Mm-hmm.
And it is that, and it reduces down to there's nothing to say, only to be.
Right. Yes.
And from there, everything what's that other word we were looking at? Everything is in that flow. Everything is in that the Purusha.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. I've got a UPS guy here, so if you hear that, that's me.
Backing up.
Yeah.
You've got your backup signal on.
He's good. He might knock on the door. His name is Sean, and he's a great guy. We know our UPS delivery guy, and he's fantastic.
Well, of course you do. You live in the wilderness.
Of course. Yes. So 290, we're on our last one. How
Yep.
can I be dispassionate? I like this one too. And he says, you are dispassionate even now. You are dispassionate. That's what you are.
Yeah.
Yeah. When you're desiring any one particular object, you've practically renounced everything else except that one object. And now, when you examine that particular desire even more closely, we find that in the moment of desire, you renounce even that particular gross object in favor of its thought form. This relates back to what happens when you love an object. It goes right back to that. That which I perceive to be on the outside of me is always on the inside of me. It's always happening inside.
Well, that's why the idea of getting something is more exciting than actually getting it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Yeah. Or it's the peace that comes when you've achieved it and you're not in that feeling of desire anymore. It's that.
I will say that looking at a tractor is not the same thing, or thinking about owning a tractor is not the same thing as getting on it, starting it, hearing it, and then moving it. the thing that makes it move.
But that's okay. You can enjoy all of that in the present moment.
Yeah, right. All of it.
All of it.
In the
present
same
moment.
present moment. Oh my God. Oh my God. You can keep saying.
Now I start it.
Yeah,
Anyway,
right.
so he says,
I only say that when I was in Dallas last week, over the weekend, my little 4-year-old granddaughter was there, and my brother Freddie, he has like 5 forklifts, 8 tractors, cranes back. He's got a whole yard of machines, and he started one up with a big bush hog on the back of it and pulled it around. He wanted me to drive it before I left to go to the airport. And my little granddaughter was there, my 4-year-old. I get up on the tractor and I'm loving it. You know, it's got this huge old 40-something-year-old tractor that runs perfect. And Freddie, my brother's name is Freddie. He puts my little granddaughter on my lap, and she's sitting on my lap, and I'm driving this big old tractor going forward. So I do have this affinity and love for tractors. And now my little granddaughter, she's going to remember her papi was driving this great big tractor.
yes,
Yeah.
yes. But if you do some self-inquiry about that, Bill, you'll find out it's all just the love.
It is.
It's all just one love.
Yeah, that's easy to see. Yeah.
So he says, examining the particular desire to drive the tractor more closely, we find that in the moment of desire, you renounce even that particular gross object in favor of its thought form or its memory, which is bringing it into the now moment.
Mm-hmm.
Because the gross object has no access into the mind's realm where alone the desire exists. Therefore, you desire only your own thought form, which is nothing other than your own big S self.
Mm.
So you desire only yourself and are always in perfect dispassion. Know this and you shall be free. So he goes at it from that angle. And then he goes at it from the angle of reincarnation. He says, it's a fact that you gladly renounce everything you profess to own or desire with a whole world of objects, including even your much loved body. So this is in death. I think he's talking about death and reincarnation here, even though we know that all reincarnation, whatever that is, happens in the now, because everything is non-local. And that without even a moment's notice, you go to another state. And in that state, you readily accept a new body in a new world to be later renounced likewise. This shows beyond doubt that you are not attached in the least to the objects in both stages. So both in gross form and in subtle form. Therefore, you're always in complete dispassion. Know this and you shall be happy. Always the only thing you desire is for your big S self. Always.
We are always the self that we seek. We're always that desire. We're the happiness that we seek. We're the self that we seek.
Yep. And Jenny says, even in dreams, and absolutely correct. Yes, even in dreams, we're so willing to lay aside our identity and move into something else. Yes. So that's another wonderful example, which we do every night.
We always have the ability to be dispassionate, to just the no judgment zone.
Mm-hmm.
Be the being.
Be the bee.
Yeah.
And sometimes I think it's, we recognize that it's fun to have these feelings. I mean, that's why we keep going back to the well, because we enjoy this little play until we don't, know?
Yeah. Why not?
Why not? And I think that that's a really important thing to recognize, is that, I'm not in 100% joy and bliss because I'm not realized there must be something wrong with me. No. There's an aspect of the big S self that enjoys having this experience.
Yeah.
There is no me that is enjoying the experience. I'm just enjoying the awareness of all of this coming up and playing out in front. And wow, what a thing that is.
Yeah. Life is good.
Yeah.
And here we are.
Yeah.
That was an awesome. Go ahead, Amy.
I just want to thank you, Bill, and I want to thank everybody. I love doing this. I love this community. I just love it. It is it's just beyond. It's great. Thank you. Much appreciation.
Nice. Thank you. I love it too. We all love it. It's a great way to travel in the content of what's happening behind the curtain, in the formless and the formless coming into form, and the delicious experience that it allows us to have in the understanding that our experience grows and gets deeper and deeper and expanding as we have clearer understanding. And when I was reading these discourses, I was reading them going, oh my God, I'm starting to understand this stuff. You know what I mean? It's like, it's coming in.
Well, he repeats himself over and over again. I mean, it's about time.
Right. Yeah.
He says it in 1,000 different ways.
This has been awesome. Thank you all for joining with us today. If anyone has any final comments, just put your hand up. Otherwise, we're finished. And Susan Telford is our co-host next week. Thank you, Susan. No, you're not next week. Who's next week?
Is it open? No.
I think it's Jenny. Is it Jenny next week?
Is it Jenny?
No?
I don't think so.
Open. It's open. Oh. Maybe William Price could do it, or
I thought you took the 13th.
Andrew has a question. Maybe Andrew could do it.
Yeah, I did, Bill, but you told me that that Jenny was doing it, and I put down for the 20th, but maybe that's not right.
Oh, Jenny Sheehan. That's right. Not this Jenny. Jenny Sheehan's doing it.
Okay.
Jenny.
Next week is Jenny Sheehan. That's right.
Yes.
Okay. Thank you for that.
Andrew has a question, Bill.
Andrew, hey, come on down.
Hi, everyone.
Hey,
Yeah, just something that I've been thinking about for a long time. It seems like with 298, can we extend 298 and say that we pray to only ourselves?
definitely.
Yeah.
But it's not you. You're not playing. It's not Andrew praying to himself. It's you, awareness or consciousness. It's that is coming online, that knows itself, so to speak. That's not true, but my words. It's your true nature that is now speaking through that body mind, Andrew, to itself.
You know,
So you're only speaking. There's only one of us. There's only you, and you're only praying to you.
All right. Thanks a lot.
Does that line up with does that resonate with you?
Yeah.
I just want to say, Cindy, who also works with Bill, had a really wonderful little mental image that she shared a week or two ago on one of her online teachings, which was just imagine sitting at a table at the kitchen table, and you're having a really personal conversation with someone who loves you deeply, and you're just spilling your guts out to them, and they totally get you. They totally understand you. They're 100% in your camp, and they just love you unconditionally. That's prayer. You're sitting at the kitchen table with yourself. It's you who's holding your hand. It's you who is sitting across from you at the table. And I realize that's a very sort of, it still contains a really powerful element of dualism. And yet for me, it's a really gentle way of forming a union between yourself and yourself. It's just being in prayer at the kitchen table, talking with yourself to yourself.
All right.
I just shared that.
Yeah. Thank you, Andrew, for your awesome questions and for being here. And thank you all. We'll see you next week with Jenny Sheehan.
Yay.
Yay. All
Go
right.
get on the